So today I'm here with a video on spirituality, and it is titled How to Be Spiritual. And pretty much, I'm just going to be breaking down what it means to be spiritual, like what spirituality even is, and how we can be spiritual or more spiritual. So I do want to start off with a quick disclaimer. Now, this video isn't intended with any agenda. I'm not here to sway anyone's mind to make them believe anything that they don't believe, or I'm not here to convert anyone. I'm also not here to, make anyone feel bad about their beliefs. Ultimately, I think that spirituality looks different for different people, and that's totally okay. It doesn't have to be the same thing for every single person. So I just want to make that, quick disclaimer. Also, this isn't religious based, it is spiritual based. And I do believe that there's a big difference between spirituality and religion. And I'll explain that more. So I do believe that spirituality is, simply connecting to God, connecting directly to God, or the source, or however you want to explain it. But I think it's just all encompassing, it's all accepting, and I don't think that there are many rules and regulations to spirituality other than the universal principles of being a good person, having your intentions be right and never inflicting pain or harm on anyone intentionally, and just again being your best self, being a good person. I think that's all that matters in spirituality. And I don't think it matters who you are. I don't think it matters whether you're gay, straight, black, white, purple, orange, green, like whatever you are. I believe that God accepts us all and loves us totally and completely. As a matter of fact, I believe that God, even before we were born, knew who we were going to be. He knew what we were going to do, or what we were, what we're going to do. And he knew what we were going to be like. So, if anyone ever told you that you needed to be different in order to know God, in order for God to love you, I'm here to let you know that that's simply not true. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what flaws you have, because we're all flawed as humans, and we make mistakes. Sometimes we do bad things, and that's just life. But I think as long as we're trying to grow, God totally accepts us and welcomes us with open arms. So with that being said, I think the difference with religion is it's more of an institution. I like to explain it this way. I think that religion is, more, or acts as more of a third party connecting us to God. I think that some people need, a handbook. They need more of that structure and a set of clear rules and regulations in order to be able to connect to God. And I think that's totally okay. I feel like however you connect to God, just connecting to God is the important part. So I never put down anyone's religion or religion in general. I think it's all important and special and meaningful, but I do think that there's a difference. So with that being said, we're going to get into the video, and I'm just going to, explain how we can be spiritual or more spiritual and what that kind of can look like. So the first step in spirituality is just to simply acknowledge the fact that there is some greater purpose, meaning, and force to life, which is God. I believe that life is more than just the physical. I think that's a belief that we need to have in order to be spiritual, and just believing and acknowledging that there is a greater purpose and a meaning to life. And I don't believe that we're all here to just live and to die and to, serve our own personal agendas in the meantime. I believe that there is a meaning and a purpose greater than, what we can even understand. So, I think the first step is just simply acknowledging. And just to clear it up, even though I'm saying steps, really there are no steps. I just felt that that was a important foundational, belief, because I think without that belief, we can't really be spiritual if we don't believe that there is something greater to life. If we don't believe that there is a greater existence. So I just wanted to say that. But other than that, I don't believe that there are any steps. There really are no steps and are really no set rules, as I explained earlier. But with that being said, I do think a super important part of being spiritual is praying. Like, prayer is so important. It is so, important for me in my life. It's almost like my therapy, actually. The things that I feel like I can't say to anyone else, or, if I'm unable to be vulnerable with anyone else, I'm able to be vulnerable with God. Especially in the moment when I'm praying, I'm just able to open up my heart completely and totally. And I feel that that's so therapeutic, and it's so important, and it's such an important way to connect to God. It's just praying, and I don't think that there is a certain way that you have to pray. Like, I, want to say this because I believe it's important, but I don't believe that, we need to be formal with God. I think we can just be real and straight up with God and come to God and be like, hey, I'm not feeling good right now. Like, my mind's messed up, my soul's messed up, my thought process is not right now. Like, I think we can come to God and say whatever, and we don't have to be formal, because God knows, who we really are and who we truly are. And, I don't think, we need to be formal with God. I just want to say that. So I think praying is super important, and, taking the time to pray, first thing in your day if you can, and, just waking up and saying, hey, like, thank you, God, for life. Thank you for all that I do have. Because sometimes we can, as humans, our minds tend to focus on the negative. Like, we can have 10 positive things going on, but if there's like one wrong thing going on, our mind is going to focus on that. So, I think it's just important to be like, hey, God, look, thank you. I acknowledge you, thank you for life, or whatever the case may be, and just talk to God. Like, whatever you need, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're going through, just pray about it. I think that's so important. Okay, so I think another really important aspect of being spiritual is, disconnecting. I think that in this world, there's so much stimuli, so much stimulus, so much going on, so much that we're focused on. So, we're always on the grind, and we're always on the move, and we're always focused on this and that, sometimes those things become a distraction for us. So I think sometimes it's super important to disconnect, I want to say from life, but like, you get what I mean. I just think it's super important to disconnect from all of the noise, and just to take time to connect with God, to take time to be alone. I think that's so important, because when you are around other people, or, when you're dealing with everyday life, you get distracted by all of that. When you're, on the party scene, you're distracted with that, and you're distracted with these drugs and, drinking. And I don't think that anything is wrong with that in moderation, but I do think that, in addition to doing those things, it's so important to take time out for ourselves, and time to quiet our mind, and, just to kind of be alone in our environment without anyone around, and, to truly take that time to focus, so that we can connect with our God, to God, and connect, to ourselves. I think that's super important. And not just as far as physical, but like the things that we engage in mentally, like social media. I think people can get so caught up in social media, and I think that it can be really, destructive to the brain and destructive to people's well-being. So I say, like, there's so much that you're taking in when you're on social media, so much that you're taking into your spirit and your mind, whether you realize it or not. So I think it's super, important to take breaks from social media. And if you are going to be on social media continuously without taking breaks, then I think it's important to, definitely watch the content that you take in, and definitely just to overall watch the things that you're taking in on social media, because again, I just believe that it can be really destructive to the mind. So, I would say follow spiritual pages, follow positive, pages that are giving you motivation or talking about spirituality, or just overall talking about positive things. But, in general, I'm not a social media person. Like, I've been off social media for years before, I really even got into spirituality, or, had my spiritual awakening. Like, social media was just one of those things, like, I never like to engage in. I don't feel like it's positive for me, and, I feel like it's all very much for show, and it's all very much an illusion that just, unnecessarily affects with people's minds and messes with people. So I think it's super, important to take time out from social media, just time out in general from, other stimuli, and to just focus on yourself and focus on God, get to know yourself, get to know God. I think that's super important. So another very important step, or not step, but aspect of spirituality is to surrender. Now, this is a concept that sounds simple, but it's actually really difficult, because I feel like in life, all we do is try to control things. All we do is focus on our own will and what we want to accomplish, who we want, and, all these desires that we have that we want to fulfill. And, in a sense, that is control, because that is our will. That's not God's will. So surrendering means trusting in God's will, trusting in God, and, putting God's will over your own, even when that's painful, even when it's difficult, even when, it's not how you envisioned and imagined things, or how you imagined that you wanted your life to be. Trusting in God's will and surrendering to his will, and, knowing that he is the best of planners. Like, we can think that we want something, but, God knows what we need. So I think that that's a super important aspect, and I think it's super hard because, we're all so tied up to our desires, and we're so tied up in the things that we want. And really, that is like the main cause of our suffering, is that attachment to our desires, and that attachment to the way we saw our lives, or that attachment to the person that we thought we wanted, and even though that person isn't good for us. So I think a part of surrendering is just by accepting God's will. Again, like I said, knowing that he is the best of planners, knowing that even when he doesn't give us everything that we want, he gives us what we need. And, just believing that God is going to work it out for us in the end. I think that's what it's about. But like I said, it's difficult because we're all kind of in a state of, constant control. And like I said, we're so attached. And it causes us so much suffering, because when we don't, get what we want, when someone, leaves us, it's devastating for us. But it just wasn't God's will for us. So, we kind of invite that pain into our life by trying to manipulate certain situations. And you know, a part of surrendering is not trying to manipulate a situation to, you know, make it what you want it to be, but by just accepting things the way they are. And my video was cut off, but anyway, to finish my thought process, I just think it's important to trust in the universe, to just be, to just live, and you know, to let everything unfold exactly the way it's going to, and just to let go. I think that's just super important in spirituality. Like I said again, there's no specific way to be spiritual, but I do believe that everything that I've discussed can help. Remember that God loves you. You are absolutely accepted. You are absolutely beautiful. You are absolutely amazing and wonderful. And don't let anyone tell you differently. Until the next video, we'll speak again.